starting with the past is always a good idea, I think. And I try to teach our students that because, history is made up of a lot of links, and you want them to be a strong link in the links of history. And I think they are.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Why Not Now show. I'm glad to have you. Today, we have Paula Wallace as our guest. Paula is the founder of the Savannah College of Art and Design. It is a world-class leading comprehensive university for creative professionals with campuses in Savannah, in Atlanta, even in Europe, and they have more than 17,000 students. Now, Paula invented this in 1979, but she has continued to reinvent the way we learn, the way we teach about the combination of creative, art, business, and now even AI. And in this episode, we talk through what she's seeing with AI on the horizon. We talk through her formula for reinvention, because she's done it multiple times. We also talk through her approach to time, how she makes decisions. And one of the things I really appreciate about Paula is her ability to get creative with business. Savannah College of Art and Design also has SCAD Pro, which is the university's in-house research lab, where students are able to work directly with clients like Google and Deloitte and Home Depot and BMW, NASA, Capital One, and get creative and become practitioners in helping those huge global brands solve problems as well as create the future. Paula has a new book called Lessons in Leadership, so I encourage you to check that out. And without further ado, here's Paula Wallace. Paula, welcome to the Why Not Now show. I'm so excited to have you here and reconnect with you.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean it's been a while, so we have some good catching up to do. Why Not Now style. As you think about that phrase, does anything come to mind in terms of a pinnacle time when you had to ask yourself, why not now, and bridge the delta of idea and action?
Well, I'm so delighted to reconnect with you, Amy Jo, the queen of social media. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Well, the big origin story of SCAD was a why not now story, in that I was teaching in the Atlanta public schools, and I loved my students. I loved my job. And I just started thinking, well, what more could I do? How could I contribute to even more people, to education on kind of a bigger scale? And I also wondered, well, what would happen to my students? I was working very hard to create a very nurturing environment and one where they felt, challenged, but also valued. And I was writing my own curriculum, and I was taking them on kind of far-flung field trips even, making films with them, and just employing all sorts of creative strategies to bring together and layer the learning for them, because you have limited time and you want to teach as much as you possibly can, but yet you want your students to love learning. So I thought about what's going to happen to these students when they get to college. And I had been to a private liberal arts college. I'd also been to a public university, and I thought, well, neither one of those really emphasized the creative aspects of learning and employed the strategies that I was employing even with my younger students. So I thought, why not now? Why not create a university that's devoted to the creative professions? I wanted it to be like a law school or a medical school where students could really study what they plan to do as a professional in the creative fields. And I thought about, well, they can have many things as a hobby or an avocation, but there really needs to be something that they really feel well prepared for and suited for, that is their vocation, that they love to do, that they never want to stop doing, that they can do it forever if they want to. So that was my motivation for starting SCAD. And I was naive, very naive. I had no idea how difficult it would be. But, once you launch in, there's no going back.
Oh my goodness. And for you, there hasn't been, looking at the amount of impact and how many students you've impacted, individuals. And so looking back, as you mentioned, like the layers of learning and you really wanted the students to fall in love with learning. Was there a moment when you were teaching where you greenlit it in your mind? It was like, that's going to seal the deal. I'm pushing myself across the starting line.
I think that I just saw that this was fine for now, but I happened to have like kind of a very gregarious, loving principal. And he really gave me the green light to do anything that I thought was valuable. And well, he agreed. But then I thought, well, what's going to happen later if I get a different principal? So I might not have the freedom to create in my classrooms the way that and take the students on these jaunts. And I rolled a piano into my classroom. Oh, let's write a song today. And so everything that I was doing, I could see another principal perhaps like not being so happy with, because it was not exactly traditional education.
That's so cool, though, that one individual, I often refer to kind of like a confidence surrogate. Yes. In a way, where it's like, I'll let you borrow mine until you actually get going, or it gives you that, even the safety net perceived. So I was just doing a video the other day about a hat that I knitted, and it has a hole in it for my ponytail when I run when it's cold.
Smart.
Well, I did this once, and then friends say, oh, you should start selling them. And I was talking about the difference between a hobby and a company. And had I had any formal training in turning arts of different sorts into business, my mind probably would have went a different way, because my very first company was a jewelry company called SAS Jewelry. But I didn't have that understanding of bridging the more business side of things. I just had more of a traditional business background. So having been to your campuses, a few of them, it is so incredibly neat how you've been able to bridge so many different skills. And is that kind of what you mean with the layers? I guess maybe we should start back at kind of the movie trailer of your life, because this all has a storyline.
Well, my first job was as a piano teacher. So when I was 12, my teacher was getting more and more students. And so she asked me if I would take some of the beginning students, and then she would focus on the more advanced students. So I became kind of the beginning piano teacher in my neighborhood. So I did that all through high school. So I was kind of an art entrepreneur, as a 12-year-old. And that's the way that I started teaching. And I saw it as I saw the possibilities of it being a profession, because my piano teacher was making it her profession. So she was a great role model for me in that sense, in that she was very, very kind and loving, and she was a great teacher. And so she trusted me to teach the students who would then be studying with her.
That's cool. There's another role model, the principal and your piano teacher. And
yes,
after starting SCAD and this evolution of all the growth, if you were to kind of sum that up in a minute or two, if that's even possible, can you talk about the journey, kind of when some of the biggest spurts happened and that timeline?
We started with only 71 students the very first year. It's kind of a miracle that even 71 students came, because, there was no track record, no alumni successes to point to, and no residence hall to stay in. And, it's just really a startup college, and who wants to put their faith in that? Well, 71 brave pioneers did. They liked being in on the ground floor, and they were great students from the very beginning. And today, of course, we have over 17,000 students in undergrad and grad programs at SCAD. The way that it's grown is really by responding to the needs of the marketplace. What is needed in the professions, and then launching programs of study, if they're suitable for us, that then can prepare students for those different careers.
Looking at the journey that you've been on, and also to begin with, this was new. This was a new concept, kind of a new category even, right? Within academics. So that was invention. And then as you look at over the course of time, reinventing and meeting the needs as they have shifted, what have been some of the pillars that have guided you in big change? And maybe these are even some things in your new book, Lessons in Leadership, things that you always kind of have in your back pocket as a go-to that's kept you on that kind of cutting edge.
Well, I think you have to always start with the old, and especially in two of our campuses in Savannah, which is primarily, 1800s and 1700s buildings. It looks very much like it did back in the 19th century.
And by the way, it's beautiful. If anybody is in that area, please go check it out. I got to stay in one of the incredible buildings on your campus when you invited me to come in and speak. And it was like walking into a museum, every single building. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It really is. I think it's America's most beautiful city. The trees, hundreds of years old, and then the Spanish moss, and then the squares, the parks that are scattered throughout the city that everyone has access to, not far from the beach either. But the historic architecture is quite, probably urban renewal forgot Savannah, and then thankfully it forgot Savannah because all of this building fabric was still here. It was kind of run down, and Lady Astor said Savannah looked like a beautiful lady with a dirty face when she came through. So I think SCAD has done a lot, and other people too, to refurbish and revitalize Savannah and make it into the beautiful place that it is today, but it had good bones. So starting with the past is always a good idea, I think. And I try to teach our students that because history is made up of a lot of links, and you want them to be a strong link in the links of history. And I think they are. But thinking about the old buildings, that's what I've kind of gotten very involved in doing, and being a historic preservationist, saving the heritage and the legacy of the buildings. And I always think about the people who made those so many years ago, and their hands and heads and hearts that they devoted to them, with all the beautiful details and all the thoughtfulness. And I feel our students are so fortunate to be able to learn from those just by walking around, in addition to the formal curriculum of their classes. And then there's the campus in Lacoste, which was given to us some years ago, and it is literally there are Roman ruins, and it's a medieval walled village that we are in Lacoste. And so they get to see that era and enjoy that and be in a whole different world. The era is different, and of course the whole environment is different. And I think about the sustainability aspect in that if you don't tear a building down, that's really the greenest building. And by refurbishing buildings that are already existing and making them useful for a new generation, I've gotten a lot of satisfaction out of that.
That's so cool. That's the vision too that it takes, but the opportunity. Just I come from a family of construction, and so just being able to kind of see through someone else's eyes what they see before even get to that point of things looking, they've been completely leveled, and it's like, no, we've got it.
Well, some of them I've gone in and seen the Georgia clay down through the floorboards and the blue sky through the rafters. So some of them, people thought I was crazy to want to save them, but they've turned into buildings that I think the students take a lot of pride in, because they do see the touch of people from the past, and they do see their place in that continuum of history.
I love that, what you said, starting with the past, because history is made of links,
Mhm.
and we want to make sure we're a strong
link.
in that story.
Mhm.
And then what would be that next step? So start with the past, the old.
Well, I always inquire of the professions. And our different majors, many of them have come from, it's not just me sitting around and thinking up, oh, what would I like to teach my students? It's really inquiring where the needs are, because I think if you invest the time and the funds in a high quality college education, then you really want to make that your profession and to be good enough at it, and also for there to be a real crying need in the professional marketplace so that you can fulfill those needs with a great education. People come to the campus all the time, sometimes like to just speak, or sometimes to interview and hire. Or we have something called SCAD Pro, which is a boutique consultancy within SCAD, and businesses actually give us assignments, and the students work on those to come up with prototypes or new products or new services or new ways of presenting information. Sometimes, the interior of a private aircraft, because Gulfstream Aerospace is their North American headquarters is located in Savannah. So we have a longtime partnership with them. But sometimes it's businesses that maybe people wouldn't think of, like Deloitte or Capital One, or, many businesses that come to SCAD and proffer these assignments to our students, and they get to work on them. But as the SCAD Pro clients are coming in, then I'm also picking their brains about what's next in their profession, and what do they see a need for, and what do they see that is not already being produced at a high level. So Mike Buzzard at Google told me, well, we need more user experience designers. And then a couple of years later, he said, well, what about user experience researchers? We need those too, because to create the design, you need to do the research first. And so a lot of data analysis. And so he helped me, and Google partnered with SCAD to create 2 curricula, one degree program for user experience design and another for user experience research. Carol Hamilton with L'Oreal was here speaking to the students, and she sat next to me at dinner, and she said, well, I have a request. How about like starting a degree program in the business of beauty and fragrance? Well, I hadn't necessarily thought about that, but then when I started doing research, I thought, well, all the fashion brands, SCAD is a big fashion school. We have the biggest fashion school of any university. And you realize, though, that much of the income and profit is generated through the cosmetics, the perfumes. So that is really a very important part of the whole fashion world. So when she offered this to me, then I said, well, would you like partner with me in creating the best curriculum that you can think of? And she did. So I looked at these experts. An Imagineer was here hiring, and he said, well, what about a major in themed entertainment? Because new theme parks are being built all over the world, plus they're always all being reinvented. And we need people who have that as a specialty. And I said, well, would you hire the graduates? And he said, yes, we're already hiring your graduates, but they're coming from architecture or from graphic design or from animation. And if you had a specialized, streamlined program that would be in themed entertainment, theme park design, it also applies to museums. All museums are using the interactive designs, concerts, hotels want to have a very special experience. So actually the students who study that get employed in many different professions. But it was really his suggestion and his request that inspired me to create that major. So I just listen, I see what's out there. And if I think that we can do it well, if I think that we can do it better than anyone else, then, I'll go with it.
I love that so much. And when I was touring your Savannah campus, I don't know if it was called SCAD Pro at the time, but I did get to go in and see some of those students working on, whether it was a brief or it was something for a very large global brand. And I was so impressed as a marketer, thinking through how empowering that must be for the student to have that hands-on experience and to be able to say, we've interfaced and worked with a global brand in creating XYZ and reinventing and then the layers to inform the curricula is just so wise. So that leads me to my next question for you in terms of what is on the horizon. If you were to say these are 3 trends we'll see over the next 3 to 5 years, specifically with your own SKU and your own lens, what are some of the things, and they don't have to be products, it could just be, human nature, just behavior. What are some of the things you're noticing as macro trends?
AI across the board. So, we're having an AI summit at SCAD in January because I charged our leaders with figuring out, well, what are the best ways for us to be clued into this revolution and these opportunities and not be scared by it, because you do hear some doom and gloom about AI, but also thinking about, well, how can we best utilize AI and in our operations, but also in our disciplines, so that they're going to be predicted like 80 something thousand jobs lost to AI, but over 90,000 jobs gained through AI. So we want to prepare our students for those 90,000 jobs that are going to be created through AI. And that's what we're doing.
It's interesting to see the task force or how different companies are handling too. And really the future of technology is the future of humanity. So we get to decide. It's very exciting. But one of the things, as I look at some of even our clients, we're talking a lot about time and what a gift AI will be to be giving us back time in our day to where we can be operating, I call it like our capacity, zone of genius, whatever you want to call it, but that potential that doesn't have any roof on it. You can always fly higher and it's infinite. And so that bandwidth that's finite, we can start outsourcing that even more. With you, Paula, I remember coming to visit you, and we went to 2 different campuses in 2 different cities in one day. And your days are, I can only imagine, scheduled very surgically. But when it comes to time, what do you have for us in terms of how you've kept your relationship with time healthy and things you do, tips, anything at all, just your theory about time?
Well, time in the big picture is infinite, but what I've come to realize is our own individual time on Earth is finite, and so you do have to value your time and sometimes say no to things. Which I'm not good at that. I freely admit I am not good at saying no. I hate to say no, but I think that is kind of the key of valuing. And I've heard your philosophy too, of finding the highest and best use of your own talents and focusing on those. And to the extent that other people can do some other things, maybe better than you, then leave those to other people to do. So I'm interested in everything at SCAD because being the founder, I'm very invested in everything. I did everything myself to start with. So I still take a keen interest in everything, every aspect of SCAD. I love the students, especially though. That's where my heart is, my students and my alumni. And so I spend more and more time with them.
See, that's interesting. It's not always what you're doing. It might be who you're with. Right. And so that filter is so interchangeable. It doesn't have to be the literal all the time. And when you look at one of the things that's just universal, we hear so much about burnout. I sense that I'm similar to you in that I love what I do. And it's easy to just, go into overdrive even. But what are some of the things you put into place as insurance for not pushing so hard that you might be able to share with us?
Well, I do a lot of writing and journaling, and I find that is like a good kind of safety valve, because you're thinking things, but you can do it like very early in the morning before anybody else gets up, and that's kind of what I do, and I think that helps me to set my intentions for the day. And I also just try to set out to put my feet on the ground and say, this is going to be a great day. And I don't really experience burnout. I have a great team around me, and they kind of protect me a little bit time-wise, I think, because I would spend a lot of time on everything.
Absolutely. Kind of the insulators, the communication side of things. And this kind of parlays into social media, which I'd love to explore because you have just rocked it in terms of
Thank you.
absolutely sharing your essence online. And I've watched this evolve over the years. But in a way, I think that's a bit of a strategy because you can be present in places. Your presence can be present even when maybe you aren't, and you're 24 hours in a day and one place at a time. So with your personal brand, just your presence online, what was there a moment where you kind of decided, okay, I'm really going to lean into this more. This is a good use of my time. And then along the way, what's kept you so consistent? Because you've definitely put in a lot of intention into it. And I love following you. So
Thank you.
absolutely.
Well, that's definitely a difference from when I started SCAD 45 years ago. There was no social media. And so that was something that I've had to learn and to evolve. And I just find that it's a great way to communicate with students and alumni, but also parents and faculty and others. And so I just try to like give a little slice of life of what's going on with me and just share my personality and my interests. And I find that my audience has many of the same interests that I do. So that's really what I do.
Well, it's got to be a very efficient way to communicate with your students and like we were saying earlier, with parents of students who.
And we have a whole major in social media at SCAD too, which really combines writing and photography and filmmaking. And so they are oftentimes little, very short films.
Right. And do you help with concepting those? I mean, you would probably have to because you have.
Oh, yes.
It's your life. And so
I'm one person, but I'm going through all these different, aspects of life with my family or with my students or with the other people who like work at SCAD. So it's different audiences.
That's fun. And I think a lot of the creativity for me, it's, there's an idea. Let's see what this wants to be, as we execute, as we start. Let's talk a little bit about lessons in leadership. So this is your new book. And can you give us a little bit of a glimpse of the key areas, or if there's any specific part that you'd like to share that you feel is most resonant?
Well, one of my first lessons is, fill the blank space. And that's what I feel like I did with SCAD, that, to search and find where there is a need, a gap, an opportunity, and then to do so with quality and to really over deliver. I like to always over deliver. So those are some of my lessons. I mean, one of them is don't boss, teach. I feel like the best leaders are good teachers. So first you're explaining something, you're educating the people around you about a new initiative and the why behind it, and also the other who, what, where, when, all of those questions that you're educating people about so that they are on the same, where you're all on the same wavelength so that you can be rowing in the same direction, So I probably will be doing some things on social media or surrounding that. I mean, I do have a YouTube program called SCAD Class where I interview faculty members. And I started with art history and I asked, like, what's your favorite work of art of all the millions of works of art out there? And they're telling me about one at a time. And it's very interesting to me, but I think it's interesting to the people who are watching too. And then I have a podcast called On Creativity that I also have on YouTube with many of the, very interesting, illustrious guests that I've had the opportunity to meet and talk to over the years.
That's so neat. I was just thinking about just the trends in fashion and how you are probably seeing them so far in advance, and SCAD and then all of your incredible students are helping guide us where we're headed? And is there anything that's kind of trendy right now that you are really into, or you're just not such a huge fan of, or anything coming up?
Well, I think red's coming up. You're wearing red. I think that's the kind of the transition from pink. Over the summer, pink was big, but now like we're transitioning into red a little bit. So I'm like pulling out my red handbag and tucking it under my arm.
Just little pops is what I,
Yeah, little
so
pops
not
of red.
the,
Yeah, little red lipstick maybe.
there you go. There you go. We're into that. Renegade Red
Yeah.
is, we're fans of that trend. Okay, one question, and then maybe we'll just do a little bit of rapid fire. And this is a lesson I keep learning in the season of humility that likes to come around. And that is really learning when to let things happen versus make them happen. And gaining more tools to be able to identify which is necessary in certain scenarios. Do you have anything that comes to mind when you need to make a decision, and it's either I'm going to push on the gas and make this happen or ease up?
Well, I always try to do research. So I ask the smartest people around me what they think and do my own research to see because you have to plot out, well, what's going to happen first? What will happen next? What will happen next? What will happen next? So it's really the whole journey in life of an initiative and an idea, not just the starting point. So you have to think it through and how will it really benefit the university in some important way. And you don't just do something on a whim, but if you think it really has be of great benefit. So I try to think things through a lot. And then I always sleep on things. And then if I still think it's a good idea the next morning, then I'll usually go with it. I'm a lot more confident in my decisions today than I was when I first started SCAD, because I've had just more experience. It's like practice with everything, with your dancing. I'm sure, the more you practice, the better you've gotten. And that's true of playing the piano or being a painter or anything in life. So the more decisions that I've made and I have that reinforcement, I always think that you really learn more from your successes than you do from your failures, because repetition is an important principle of teaching and learning. So it's just like you sing that ABC song. Well, how many times you sing it? Well, then you learn your ABCs, right? Or a multiplication song. So it's the repetition of it that then, makes it like solid in your mind. And so the more successes you have, then you are really learning that path to success. And so I always focus on that and stress that in my own learning. And then I try to do my best to make anything a success. If it's not, then I'll change. I think that's one of the principles that I put in my book, like, don't be afraid to kill your darlings, because sometimes you can hold something too close because it was your idea and not let it go when it has failed to serve its purpose, or maybe it's outlived its usefulness.
I like that too. And the successes, that consistency, that's compounding. And when you mentioned journaling each morning and writing as a bit of a safety valve, I've found that helps turn up the volume on my intuition, my GPS more, if I can keep that quiet time in the morning and check in before all of the external data comes flying in.
And just think at night, try to run through, well, what were some of the great things that happened today? And leave yourself casting into your dreams with good thoughts of something that was what went well today. Because sometimes, you're kind of worrying at night, and that really doesn't serve a purpose. But if you intentionally think about what went well today.
I love that, because you're planting a seed of what you want to dream of. At least the intention or the direction, hopefully your dreams will head to. Sometimes I do gratitude ABCs, where you just think of an A, kind of like counting sheep. But
yes.
I had never thought about it that way, in terms of you're setting yourself up for the next scene of your dreams.
The next scene.
The next scene. So when I say the word renegade, does anyone specific come to mind for you, Paula?
Well, besides you, I think, I have some great friends like Diane von Furstenberg. I think she's a renegade, starting her own company, today she's recently been restoring a place in Venice. So she's just the most, amazing friend, so smart, just so loyal to her friends too. And just, she always has great ideas. I think that she started her company and she's still going today. And I really admire her a lot. I recently had a conversation with Ava DuVernay because she was screening a film, Origins, at SCAD. And I think that she's a great example of a renegade. She started out in public relations and suddenly now she's like made so many fabulous films. This last one, I definitely urge everyone to see. Great job that she did with Origins. Wonderful, wonderful story that was based on Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast. And I have just many friends. Lisa Perry, my friend, just started a new gallery for women artists specifically. She already had one in the Hamptons, and she's just started one in Palm Beach just this week. So she's someone that she doesn't take no for an answer. She knows what her purpose is. She's focused on women artists specifically, and she's doing like amazing things for other women.
I love that. I love that. I think about what you mentioned as far as being a teacher, even the piano teacher, and having these guides kind of along the way. And you've been a guide to so many as well. If you were to go back to kind of that moment where you did have that principal that was encouraging and say something to yourself in that moment before starting SCAD, what would you say?
I think follow your heart. Follow your heart. It used to be a philosophy of education that, you had to fit into a round peg had to fit into a square hole. But that philosophy has been disproved that really you should pursue what feels right to you. And I see students coming here all the time with their parents. They're so happy to find a place where they can have a productive life and do what they love at the same time. And I think following your heart, coming from a more traditional education myself, I think that encouragement that I would give myself to just follow your heart, because I think your instincts will take you in the right direction.
I love that. We need more of that for sure. And thank you for demonstrating that and sharing it and your time with us here. It's been awesome to reconnect. And please come back. I'd love to come out and see the campus. I'm sure things have changed. Well, at least in Savannah. I know that you have multiple campuses, but so I'm going to have to make a visit. But thank you for
Please
everything.
do. And we'll do it 2 days this time.
Okay. I love that. I love that. I'll practice the dance in the performance, so on the keynote.
Looking forward to that.
Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you, Amy Jo.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now? Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us.